welcome to Lab Talk. Really happy to be here today. My name is Angela Carnwright. I'm with the marketing team here at Thermo Fisher Scientific. Welcome everybody to another episode of Lab Talk. This is a series of tips and tutorials, short tutorials that we're here to help you make the most out of our products in your lab. So we want to keep you focused on your research and advancing to your next discovery rather than worrying about your equipment and your tools that you're using to get there. So today we have a real treat. When we think about protocols, almost every protocol, or I could say many protocols that we have require a centrifugation step. And centrifugation is one of the pieces of equipment that we have many options in the lab, and there's lots of different ways that we use our centrifuges with different adapters and tools and different labware that we use within them. So today we want to talk a little bit about safety of rotors. And today I'm really excited to introduce TT Hong. So TT is our centrifugation commercial manager here at Thermo Fisher Scientific. So TT's been with us for many years. He's worked a lot with our customers out in the field to help them find the right solutions. And today we're going to talk a little bit about safety.
Thanks, Angela. Again, my name is TT Hong. I'm the commercial manager for centrifugation. Today, we'll be discussing tips associated to rotor safety best practices. So why is it important to follow these safety best practices? I find these tips very important because rotors are capable of running up to high speeds. And if a rotor fails at these high speeds, it could potentially shatter or cause any type of catastrophic failures, leading to damage of the centrifuge or the surrounding area. And when this happens, it has the potential to put users at risk of injury. That brings me to my second reason, which is protecting the personnel. A rotor failure can result in the release of hazardous or infectious sample material that can harm the user or those around them. Next, it will help maintain your sample integrity, ensuring that your samples aren't lost due to a tube or bottle damage. It will also prolong your equipment life to ensure that the full amount of cycles are achieved per the rotor manufacturer's stated recommendation. Regular maintenance and adherence to these safety guidelines ensures you achieve the intended rotor life set by the manufacturer, reducing the need for early on repairs or replacements. But remember that rotors should not be used longer than indicated. Rotor safety also ensures that we meet compliance standards set by agencies such as OSHA and other regulatory bodies. Non-compliance could result in potential fines, rejection of manufacturer's warranties, rejection of insurance claims, and more. And lastly, our rotor safety best practices will help prevent contamination of the centrifuge, rotor, or your samples. So what can you do to ensure you're using and maintaining rotors properly? Tip number one, read the user manual as it provides critical safety instructions to prevent accidents, proper use parameters such as max speeds to avoid misuse or malfunction, and it will offer information such as rotor compatibility for centrifuge and sample type. So let's go to the immersive lab really quick to show how our Thermo Scientific Sorval Bio 16 how it has a user manual loaded onto the user interface of the centrifuge. You can demonstrate how to get to it. So you would first go to the left settings, and then under help, there's a help tab on the bottom left. And as you can see here, you'll have a 3 tabs highlighted in blue. First is a training video. And then second tab is where we have the manual. Like that. And then we even have what we call a rotor calculator for those looking to transfer protocols from one centrifuge to another, or from one rotor type to another, so that you are achieving the required G-forces for your separation. So again, these are all very helpful and already loaded onto the user interface of some of our centrifuge platforms, such as the Sorval Bio 16. Thank you. So we'll move on to tip number 2, which is ensure your rotor is properly installed. If you're using a rotor that needs to be screwed on, make sure that the threads align and that you don't over tighten or under tighten the rotor, as it can result in damage or breakage. So can we go back to the immersive lab again? Luckily, at Thermo Scientific, we have our auto lock feature built into a lot of built into most of our centrifuge platforms, such as the general purpose bench tops, our small compact bench top, and super speed platforms for quick and easy rotor exchange. All you do is push a button to release the rotor, and then you can easily place it back down onto the spindle for easy installation. To ensure that the rotor is attached, tug on the rotor itself to make sure that it doesn't release. Great. Thank you for that demonstration. Tip number 3, hand check that the rotor spins freely each and every time. Again, make sure that the rotor is properly attached and rotating freely. Yeah, you can do that by hand. If you're using a swing and bucket rotor, such as the one in the video here, make sure that the trunnion rings holding the buckets are properly lubricated per the manufacturer's instructions, and that they are not stuck in position. So you can easily check by allowing it to swing freely there as demonstrated. Thank you for that. Moving on to our tip number 4. Check for damage of the rotor or the sample container that you're using. Remember that these rotors are spun really fast, so any damage could cause a rotor to fail. This also includes any tubes or bottles used in the rotor. One of those fails, it will cause a major imbalance and possible rotor or centrifuge damage. So visually check for rotor or consumable signs of damage, distress, or corrosion. We're demonstrating here real quick how we inspect the O-rings, we check the lids, we're looking on the surface for any distress, check the bottles again, and also the caps on it. And of course the O-rings, just to ensure that there are no leakages or damages, because once a tube or bottle breaks, it can cause severe imbalance. Thank you for that. Tip number 5, balance your rotor properly. Let's quickly demonstrate a improperly balanced rotor and one that is properly balanced. So yeah, as shown here, this is an imbalanced rotor where the opposing loads aren't directly across from one another. So how do you balance this load? Could you please demonstrate how to properly balance? Perfect. And as you can see, these are the opposing tubes for the opposing loads. And if there isn't, if you have an odd number of tube or you don't have a sample to run as an opposing load, please make sure you use a balanced tube filled with, a water or some type of buffer solution. And another tip is to also be aware of your centrifuge imbalance tolerance. Each centrifuge manufacturer has a listed imbalance tolerance that you'll find in the user manual. It's really important to know that so that you don't exceed those imbalance tolerance metrics. Tip number 6, make sure to follow manufacturer's stated specifications. Do not spin tubes, bottles, or rotors beyond the manufacturer's stated specifications, as this can result in catastrophic failures of all items. As you can see here, we're showing our Thermo Scientific Fiberlight F10 4x1000 rotor. As you can see below there, it lists the max RPM or max G-force that this rotor can be spun at. Okay, and remember that the max speed allowed is dependent on the lowest speed rating, whether it's a centrifuge, rotor, or consumable being used. For example, just because your rotor and centrifuge can spin at 20,000 times G, doesn't mean that your conical tube or consumable rated to spin up to 15,000 times G can also spin up to that speed. So make sure that you follow, again, the lowest speed rating of either the rotor, centrifuge, or consumable that you're using. And so there you have it. Those are my 6 tips for rotor safety best practices. To summarize what we just covered, again, read the user manual for proper handling, ensure proper rotor installation, and check that the rotor and buckets are moving freely. Visually check the rotor and consumables for any signs of stress or damage. Balance your rotor using proper opposing loads or even using a balanced tube. And lastly, do not spin tubes, bottles, or rotors beyond the manufacturer's stated specifications. For more information and details, I recommend that you visit our webpage at www.thermofisher.com/rotors. We also have video contents about centrifuge best practices found on the Learn platform. And don't forget, we have our 3D product tours on a variety of centrifuge and rotors. All of these resources and tips will ultimately help you reduce the likelihood of accidents and damages that can lead to a loss of time, money, or even injury.
Thanks, TT. Great tips.
Thank you.
I just want to reiterate that all of the content that you see here at the Lab Talk, as well as any of our supporting materials for centrifugation, can also be found on YouTube. So we have videos for, installation of your centrifuge, how to use the user interface, or even how to choose between the different models that we offer with different touchscreen versus button options and so on. So please, use Google, search us up. You can find us on YouTube as well. So it makes it easy for you. Look, everybody, while you're out there using your centrifuges, the variety of different centrifuges that you have in your lab or shared environments in your shared equipment rooms, please remember these tips. You can share this session over to people in your lab or in neighboring labs if you find it helpful. And if you have any questions or other topics that you'd like us to cover in Lab Talk, please fill out our survey and we'd be happy to get those added to our lineup. Thank you, TT. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.